live from a stack of Bibles scrubbed from the terms DEI and ESG. I didn't know DEI and ESG were in the Bible originally. Is that true?
Really?
It's an all-new,
I didn't know that.
wacky Wednesday edition of Business Pants, joined by analyst Matt Moscardi. You just heard him. That's Matt Moscardi.
Yeah, that was me.
Our crossover podcast man. You were on shareholder primacy last week. Is that right?
Today. It came out today.
On today's non-binding shareholder proposal-shaped pretzel called February 19th, 2025, the dripping with sarcasm good game. Oh.
Oh no, so it's the cynical game.
Oh. Our show today is being sponsored by FreeFlowAnalytics.com, the only platform measuring board power connections to performance for free. And I've been on that platform, and there's nothing like there's no chicanery either. There's no like weird like rating systems, and there's no weird you can't use it to greenwash anything. Actually, maybe you could. I guess you could greenwash anything you
How
wanted.
could you greenwash people? You can't greenwash a person. It's all people on there.
I'm just saying it's just data. It's not left of the spectrum. It's not right of the spectrum. It's just data. It's just great data.
Yeah, that's correct.
Are you ready for the sarcastic good game?
I don't know. Am I ready for the sarcastic
No.
good game? I don't feel ready.
No, it works the same way the actual good game works. It's just that clearly none of this stuff is actually good. But the headlines make them seem like they're good. But you can just sarcastically score it or not score it or yell. You can do whatever you want.
So what's a 10 in this game? Is it
10,
good?
Well, let's figure this out as we go along.
Oh, good. All right. That sounds like a game that's well planned in pre-production.
Yeah, let's. The first headline is a great bellwether. It's a great canary in the coal mine. So I feel like we should set the tone with this first headline. Here you go. Ready, Matt?
I'm ready.
Proxy vote support for ESG drops to record low in 2024.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that good? This is according to Share Action's Voting Matters report, saying that ESG proposal support has dropped from 21% from 2021 to 1.4% last year. Matt, do you think this is because they include all those despicable, racist, anti-DEI proposals?
That's what I'm curious about, right? Like
They are.
So,
that is ESG, but I mean, technically, that's ESG. ESG is not a left-wing conspiracy, Matt. It's just data.
But if you're including the ones that ask for like trans people to never be allowed in any bathrooms,
basically. Yeah.
right? Like, are we really doing like that? I don't think that's what we were getting at, right?
Well, but if you're measuring these resolutions, how do you exclude those? It's sort of the same theory, no? Asking trans people to die is sort of the same as like splitting the roles of chair and CEO. No?
Is that
kind of
really
the same thing,
Is that
right?
where we're at? That's
Yeah.
where we're at.
You're either killing CEO power or you're killing queer people because you're a homophobic jerk. I mean, right? It's kind of the same thing.
I mean, so like this is the confusing part. This is what was the name of that? It was Share Action. Did the report?
Yeah, Share Action's Voting Matters report.
It looks like they weeded out things, but they have
how dare
Lockheed
you.
Martin had a report on lobbying. Now, often the reports on lobbying are lobbying activities around like Chinese Uyghurs, which was like a secret backdoor anti-ESG thing, right?
That's so 2021.
So I can't differentiate between some of these in their report. As far as I can tell, what we know when we look at when we look globally, but in the U.S. in particular, the traditional ESG gets 5x more than the anti-ESG. The anti-ESG, share support has been hovering around 1.5%, where ESG support is hovering around 6, 7, 8%. With
Both
ESG being more likely to win. It wins occasionally. G wins a lot more.
Well, a lot more. He said, tongue in cheek.
Is this good?
You understand how this game works? It's a sarcastic good game. So you're gonna have to set the tone here. Is a high score mean it's sarcastically good? I don't know. You're the gatekeeper.
What I unsarcastically think.
Yeah.
I think that given that investors don't seem to care
About anything.
director votes, 96% is
God,
the average for a vote.
God, no.
And now if they don't care about shareholder proposals, which they don't seem to care about either,
Decreases
the
year over
only
year.
times they do due diligence is when there's an activist investor
Yes,
involved.
that they care about.
Maybe the rule needs to be the major investors, like if you own 5% or more of a company and it's largely held in passive investment vehicles, you should not be allowed to vote anymore. You don't do it. You don't do any analysis.
I like this.
You don't
I like
vote
what you're
against
saying.
management. So this is actually them just abdicating. Maybe they should just, instead of, this would be good, I'm going to give it a 5.
That's a good way to
because it
not
suggests
commit
that
to the game. Yeah.
it suggests that they're basically willing to not do any work on what is good and right and for the future value of these companies. So if you're not willing to do it, maybe just that you're at 1.4%, why don't you just not vote? Stop entirely.
To be clear,
just don't vote.
To be clear, they are willing to do work if another firm is generating headlines about the company, like an activist investor. That's when they're willing to do the work. If people are
They're
Googling
willing to do
that
the
company.
work when Robbie Starbuck comes in
or Elliott Management
yells,
or something.
or Elliott Management comes in,
Sure.
or Ed Blum sues the company. They're just not willing to do the work on the merits of the request, right? Like this director merits a position or not, or this shareholder proposal actually is something that we think improves the value of the company over time, right? Like they don't seem to do that anymore.
Let's move on, but keep with the same subject matter. Trump's SEC leader shifts power from investors to boardrooms.
Oh,
that sounds like good news. He said sarcastically. I mean, could you shift any more power? You know what I'm realizing, Matt, and I know this is like, a dummy would realize this, but I know I'm basically a dummy, is that all the headlines especially that we're covering since Trump won the election, is that they are consolidating so much power into the hands of CEOs and management and boards. That's all they're doing. That's like, don't mistake anything else that's going on in America right now. They're just shifting power dramatically into the hands of CEOs. That's what they're doing.
is this good? What a question.
Well, you said you didn't want the investors to have a voice, and Trump's SEC is basically agreeing with you. Yeah,
they're agreeing with me. Except they're doing it for all investors as much as they can. But look, how much power did investors have when most companies could appoint a director a year before the director ever gets voted on?
Sometimes up to 2 or 3 years if it's a classified board.
So what are we talking about power? You didn't even have the power to elect them. By the time they're in the job, and you finally wake up and you're like, oh, I guess it's time to elect somebody who's had a job for a year.
And Matt, I'm seeing new directors now with golden hellos, around $1 million in equity. So you really have no say in what their job performance.
Can I ask, so Mark Ueda is the acting chair of the SEC while they're waiting for the new guy, Paul something, I can't remember his name, to get confirmed by the Senate. It's sitting. Can the acting chair of the SEC just unilaterally shift the direction of the entire SEC? Is that something you don't see a lot of?
These things matter anymore in our federal government? You think any of that matters?
Even at a company, you don't see like an interim CEO be like, you know what we're going to do? We've been selling, hydraulic presses. We're going to start selling
bananas.
Gold, right?
Matt, this is the federal government that has just announced that Elon Musk doesn't actually work for the government, so he can't be held accountable for anything. It doesn't actually work there, so they can do whatever they want. They can do whatever. So, what's your vote on this one?
My vote on this one is, you know what? A sarcastic 10. It's a sarcastic 10.
Now you understand the game. Let's stay. Let's stay with this subject.
It's a perfectly sarcastic 10, like as if they didn't have any power.
Let's stay with this subject because now we're picking up steam a little bit. We're starting to roll.
I like steam. Yeah.
BlackRock pauses corporate meetings. BlackRock does a lot of pausing, I've noticed. BlackRock pauses corporate meetings in wake of new ESG rules. They're pausing corporate meetings already. They're already.
That's what they call taking a stand, Blackrock. That's what they call standing up for yourself.
And I think you're covering a little bit of this later in the show, but this has to do with the new rules surrounding 13D versus 13G filers, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah.
So BlackRock's freaking out, right? Because they actually have no power or legal team to fight for itself. So just like we're seeing with everyone in the Trump era, is just bail. Let's just bail. Let's just give up.
Let's come back to this.
All right. Give me a score then.
I want this headline to read, BlackRock stops voting in wake of new ESG rules. So to me, this isn't sarcastic enough.
Well, Matt, we talked about in the past that Vanguard has a voting policy called a mirror voting policy, where you just do what Vanguard does, and what Vanguard does is vote for management basically all the time.
No.
Yeah.
The mirror voting policy does what everyone else does, not what Vanguard does.
But that's what Vanguard does too. Left to their own devices, they just vote for management. What I'm trying to say,
that's very different from the pro-management policy they also offer.
Right, that's very different. What I'm trying to say is they're not really voting in the first place, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. So what's your BlackRock score?
I'm going to give that, they did not go far enough, so I'm going to give it a 7. It can't be a 10.
This next one could be super easy for you because this headline just dropped right when I was putting the show together. Vanguard pauses corporate meetings over new ESG
there it
guidance.
is. Oh.
Do you think they're upset that BlackRock beat them? Like, do you think they look like they're just copycats? Do you think they're all bummed out?
Do you think that, so they have stewardship teams.
Big teams.
What are those teams doing now?
What have they been doing, Matt? Other than waiting for Elliott management to create a proxy contest somewhere, what have they been doing?
Isn't the logical next step to this? Okay, so BlackRock and Vanguard no longer are going to hold meetings they're pausing everything. This is basically the only governance work they do. 60% of BlackRock's assets are passive assets, right? So and that's a lot of assets. You're talking about $11-12 trillion in assets. So you're talking about a significant chunk of their assets is passive. If they're passive in the actual allocation to the asset and they pause all of the work they do to manage the future value of the asset through governance, what is the point of you? What do we need you for?
I like this.
What do we need you for at all?
They can work for us pro bono and join a cause.
So now you're on the stewardship team. Your whole job, these are teams of 20, 30, 40 people.
And they're probably paid pretty well, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't think they're not paid like a portfolio manager, but $100,000, $200,000.
Yeah, they're not in the Honda Civic class.
Right. They're more like they're probably like a good Swedish car,
a Volvo SUV,
a Volvo,
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Something that you're not embarrassed to drive up to your,
that's the most important thing. Yes.
So they have a team of 30 people who basically have just been told, okay, pause, what you're doing. How long until they look at the team and they're like, what do we need you for, really? It's not going to change for the next 4 years in the U.S. And the U.S. is most of the assets of the world, most of the assets that they hold. And the majority of their assets are passive. And why not just be like, all right, guys, why don't most of you take a break? And by break, I mean a new job. And we'll, call you if ever governance matters again.
Well, Matt, I don't know if you're aware of how a VCR works, but the good thing about pausing it is that the tape itself is still engaged. It's still
really?
It's really loaded up. It's not like the tape is dropped. So they really could hit the play button and get this going quickly. Top Gun could get rolling quickly. Hats off to BlackRock and Vanguard for not, they're really being cautious. I really love it.
Please say more about how VHS tapes work.
Okay, come on. What's your vote?
This is also a 7.
Okay, 7. Let's move forward. Oh, we could change gears here a little bit. Meta, X, and Snap submit joint letter signaling support for age verification bill to protect teens in South Dakota. The controlled empires told South Dakota's Senate Judiciary Committee members that the bill is the, quote, best solution to support families, end quote. How about that? That's great. They care about families, Matt. That's the best. The best thing they can do is an age verification system, right?
Wow.
That's the best thing they can do, right? That's great.
Wow. I mean, let's just discuss how age verification systems, how well they've worked for porn.
Well, they've worked for pretty much everything. But yeah, I mean,
like literally
alcohol,
cigarettes.
Sure, whatever. Porn.
Look, as irony goes, does it get more ironic than a bunch of companies that actively target the youngest I mean, like
three controlled companies that are run by
why is this this headline's wrong? It should say Zuckerberg, Musk, and Spiegel.
Yes,
support age verification, and then you know what it feels like? Three like youngish white guys who are like, oh yeah, no. This is a good idea. Like, get those young girls off of our platforms. Doesn't it sound creepier suddenly? It sounds much creepier. I'm gonna give this a 5.
Sarcastic 5.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that TikTok did not also sign the letter. Let's be honest,
put it
over the edge.
Let's be honest. It's hard to play sarcastic scoring games.
I'm having a really hard time. I'm just saying numbers at this point.
Oh, how about this one? The New York Times encourages staff. Sounds good. Encourages staff to create headlines using AI. Here's the quote. This is the quote from the newspaper's new editorial guidelines. Generative AI can assist our journalists in uncovering the truth and helping more people understand the world. Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds great, right?
This one, have they, New York Times, have you used generative AI? It lies constantly.
You don't think a shift, a journalistic shift to AI is not a good idea? That sounds like a great idea especially since these places are controlled by the companies we just talked about, the X, Meta, right? I mean, Snap they're developing their own AI.
Okay, let's do this right now. We'll do it live because this is interesting to me. Sure. I am going to put into ChatGPT this headline.
Okay.
Please rewrite this headline. And let's see what it comes up with. ChatGPT says, rewrite the headline. Rewrite the headline. See, look, it couldn't even do it. This is this is their rewrite. New York Times advises staff to use AI for crafting headlines. That's what it said.
Well, yeah.
What was the original? New York Times encourages staff to create headlines using AI.
Yeah.
There. We have uncovered more of the world. We understand it better now.
I would like to know
that. That's
a
10. I was not convinced until I just did that. That's a 10.
I'm going to move forward. There's too much to say there, and I don't want to blow up my microphone. We have a few headlines involving CEO pay. Citi raises CEO Jane Fraser's compensation 33% to $35 million for 2024. Whoa. Good for Jane. This is obviously a woke move, right? Because a woman, she's a woman. That's why
she still makes less than Jamie Dimon, but good for her. Yeah.
How do you feel about that raise? That's pretty cool.
I think I'm going to give it a 2. It's not only is it woke, but it's not high enough for me to be really outraged by it.
See, now you're really playing the sarcastic game. All right, how about this next one? Shell CEO Ben Van Beurden pay up 50% as soaring energy prices boosted profit. So Jane's only went up 33%. Ben's went up 50%. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that one's a 4.
Okay.
Because 50% is greater than 33%, but it needs to be more. Let's try here, people. We're not even trying.
How about this last one? This one tickles me. This is great news, and it mostly tickles me because So when you look in a proxy statement for a publicly traded company in America, the compensation sections, how they do the math to get to the total pay for the CEOs is roughly about 18 pages of craziness, right? And no two companies do it in the same way. It is a labyrinth of expertise and genius, right? But somehow they miraculously get basically to the same amount. So remember that Jane Fraser got $34.5 million. Here's the next headline. Morgan Stanley boosts CEO Ted Pick's compensation to $34 million.
Oh, there it is. 34.
How is this possible, Matt?
So
how is this
I'm
happening?
very disappointed that he got 0.5 million less than Jane
Well, it's
Fraser.
his first year. It's only his first year. Jane's been there for at least, 5 years?
Jane has been there for a while, yes, but that's no excuse. The Ted Pick is just as important as Jane Fraser. So I'm going to say that this is a 1. Ted, you should have asked for 0.6 million more. 0.6 million, and you're winning.
Okay, let's look at HSBC. Here's the headline, and I have a few actual follow-up headlines before you can come to your score. Let's start with this one. HSBC announces share buyback of up to $2 billion as annual profit jumps 7%. Okay, but here's a few headlines to help you make your decision. These are all headlines from the same last couple of days. HSBC's CEO targets $1.5 billion in cost cuts. So you see,
there it is.
They're spending $2 billion for the share buyback, but they're also targeting $1.5 billion in cost cuts. Also, HSBC to cut jobs as bank shifts to building Asian wealth hubs. And finally, same day, Matt, HSBC pushes back net zero goals by 20 years.
Oh, finally, someone's setting something further into the future. Yeah.
Jesus. I mean, I would have been okay with 7 years, but 20, that's just great.
How are you going to pay for these buybacks if you don't push net zero goals out another 20 years?
What a wonderful moment in
what's
buyback
great about
history.
This?
Yeah, go ahead.
All the numbers are just right there for you, right? Like they're not.
Same day of headlines, Matt.
We're now not even making an effort to be like, we have to announce it's tough times ahead. We're going to have cost cuts. We're going to move to Asia. And then we wait like 2 weeks and we're announcing share buybacks, for our investors who have been loyal to us. Now it's the same day. They're just like, we're going to get $1.5 billion by basically cutting jobs and costs. And we're just going to give it to shareholders. We're not going to save any of it. We're going to stop going for, any of this climate-y stuff and all these employees. What do we need them for? We're just going to hand it to investors. It's nice. It's nice. That's a 10.
Good one. That's a 10.
That's a 10.
It's a glorious moment.
That's how you do a 1 day, 1 week of announcements. I like it.
This is the next one's a good one. Airbnb is suing New Orleans over new rules requiring platforms to verify owners have permits for short-term rentals. So they're suing the city over new rules requiring platforms to verify owners have permits for short-term rentals. Airbnb said that it had no responsibility for the actions of hosts on its platform, and they also denied that it was obliged to verify that its listings are in compliance with city laws.
No, there we go. I like that.
Hats off to Airbnb. I'm almost speechless about this. I mean, this is the brazen, lovely new world of Trump 2.0, where CEOs can say this shit and get away with this shit. I mean, also, this is great. Be
clear, Airbnb is a dual class company held by Brian Chesky, right?
Yeah.
I'm
going to repeat that. Airbnb said it had no responsibility for the actions of hosts on its platform.
Brian Chesky says that. Yeah.
The hosts on its platform are the entire business model for Airbnb, just so we're clear. That's it. That's what the...
And here's where you went wrong, Airbnb. Take a page out of Meta, X, and Snap, who are writing to say, we think this is a great idea. Just send New Orleans a letter saying, we think this is a great idea, and then don't do it. That's what you're supposed to do.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good option.
So that's a 0 just because they played that wrong. You don't sue the city. You pretend you care about what the city said first and then don't listen.
Here's a quick one. David Folks elected chairman of Brunswick Corporation Board of Directors in addition to current CEO role.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Finally.
So Matt, he's being elected to run his own oversight board.
Finally. Look, I don't know why it was ever not this way. I mean, this sounds like one of those like wokey governance people, came in and said, you need to separate your CEO and chair. David Folks has been the CEO since 2019, and he's finally, 6 years on, getting his day to own the company and be his own boss. At last, 10. Well done.
Yeah, why can't Trump be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court? Why can't we do that too? Why can't? What's your score on this one?
This one's a 10. And you know what? Thank God that Vanguard and Blackrock paused corporate meetings so they can no longer ask Brunswick Corporation what they were thinking, their board, what they were thinking when they decided to elect David Folks also chair. So this is a 10.
Remember, he's now in charge of his own oversight board. Here's the next headline. JP Morgan Chase begins to remove DEI efforts from its website after CEO Jamie Dimon's bold pledge to take on conservative agenda. Remember, bring it on?
Yeah, he said bring it on. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
No, here's the problem.
Yeah.
He went last. The right play here is to be a total, get down on your knees and kiss the ass first. You don't do it last. Nobody likes the guy who did it last after everyone else has already kissed the ass. Here is where Zuck got it right. He immediately, as soon as everything looked like it was, he went right for it. Musk did it first, Zuck did it second, and Jamie Dimon. We're in mid-February now, and now DEI doesn't matter after multiple lawsuits and everyone targeting.
Well, it's
and
Black
whatever.
History Month. Black History Month.
I mean, I guess that's true. I'll give him 1 point for that. It's a 1.
Okay.
It's a 1.
I got two more headlines for a very sarcastic good game for February 19th, 2025.
This is the most cynical good game ever.
I think Matt's playing the game pretty well, actually. United Health Group, back to shareholder proposals. United Health Group resists shareholder proposal on delayed and denied care. They're attempting to get rid of a non-binding shareholder proposal that asked the company to prepare reports on the costs of delayed and denied healthcare. That's good for the company, right? They don't need that crap.
They don't need that crap, but they're going to argue.
Why let the investors even vote on it?
Ordinary business, because they just put in place a new guy to replace the murdered guy, Brian Thompson, right? So he just doesn't. He's just not. They actually probably are just going to say well, we didn't. The guy who would have prepared this report got murdered for the things you're asking for.
Wow, that's dark.
And we just put a new guy in. You can't be asking him to do that quickly. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give this a 5 because you really gotta wait at least a year for the other guy to get his bearings.
And finally, and what I'm calling maybe okay, we've been complaining a lot how investors don't seem to be doing their jobs. They're not holding anyone accountable. They're not voting down sound pay proposals. They're not voting out directors. They what did you say, 4% of vote against directors? Is that what you said, 4%?
Yeah, 96% is the average vote for directors. So 4% is the average vote against.
So this headline is, I don't have my theory. I don't have my thesis statement fully thought out yet, but I'm starting to percolate. I'm starting to think about how we can solve this crisis, this investor crisis, with this next headline. Chances of asteroid hitting Earth are higher than ever. Matt, they're calling it a 3.2% chance that an asteroid is going to hit Earth. That's higher than the 1.4% supporting ESG proposals, right? So I'm just trying to figure this out. Maybe if we got the asteroid to hit a city with a lot of annual meetings or something, could that help? I'm just trying to. I'm not telling the asteroid anything. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just thinking out loud here.
You know what? So I've said this to clients before of free flow analytics, where you can get data on every single board member in the world and how they perform. What the thing that I've said is, more people, according to a Pew poll, believe the Earth is flat than vote against directors. I love that. I love these juxtapositions. Like the investors currently like the environment less than the chance of Earth getting hit by an asteroid, right? Like that's great. That's great. That's a 10. That's a 10 if ever there was one.
I will say this though: the SEC is weighing in that that asteroid will not have any. They won't be allowed to vote. The asteroid won't be allowed to vote.
I heard the asteroid was actually going to be excluded due to the ordinary business rule. Like you can't ask questions about the asteroid.
Yeah, but if we rename the asteroid Elliott Management or whatever, then the asteroid can destroy whatever it wants to.
Then it can hit anything, and you can
Nelson
ask it
Peltz
questions.
Asteroid. That's it. That's my very sarcastic good game. I would add up the scores, but nobody cares, so I'll just say it's a 7.
All right, I love it. I love being. I love a good cynical good game. But let's talk about fun times in 13G filings. Should we? Of
course.
Everybody's asking questions about 13G filings, so let's do it.
We referenced this earlier.
Let's make this a fun game. No one knows about what a 13G filing is for the most part. No one cares. And they definitely don't know what a 13D filing is. But it's the death of shareholder democracy by bureaucracy. It is. So the two. I got to turn the music off. It's killing me.
I'm enjoying the music.
Oh, really? So the two headlines you already read out: BlackRock pauses corporate meetings and Vanguard pauses corporate meetings. The reason they're doing it is because the SEC released guidance about 13G forms and 13D forms. A 13G form is a form for a company that owns 5% or more of the shares, but does not have an activist stake, as in isn't out there trying to put their own board members on the board or, they're taking the stake so they can break up the company. That's what it used to be defined as. The new guidance says if you own 5% or more of a company and you basically talk to the company at all, then you are considered an activist. The difference between a G and a D filing is a tremendous amount of legal paperwork.
Sure.
Like constant filings, constant paperwork. The way to think about this is it's sort of like a make middle school boys great again SEC declaration, right? Because the middle school boys,
white boys,
that run these companies have been complaining for years that investors, basically the owners of the companies, have too much say in what they're doing. So they wanted to stop that. So here's the size of the problem and why you see BlackRock and Vanguard in particular dropping out. Out of 4,500 public U.S. companies, BlackRock files 13Gs at 2,300 of them, basically almost 2,400 of them.
Okay.
In fact, BlackRock is in the top 10 holders of 75% of the U.S. market.
Well, let me tell you this, Matt. This is a nerdy insight into this data, is that when I'm looking at a proxy statement, I don't even, to search for the ownership table, I often just do the Control F, that's a find function on my computer, and I just start typing in BlackRock. That gets me to the ownership table.
Every single time. Almost every single time.
It's the easiest way to get there.
Vanguard, meanwhile, has almost 2,200 13G filings. Okay. The next closest in 13G filings is a firm called Dimensional Fund Advisors.
Really? Over State Street. Okay.
Yep. And they have 390. So you are really talking about this targets two companies, BlackRock and Vanguard.
Okay.
But what I did was I went through and looked at every 13G filer for all these companies in the U.S.
Sure.
And the output was I wanted to know, first of all, how much more will it cost? So I made some estimates here, and I'll just use BlackRock as an example. If we pretend that the COO has to sign off on every 13G filing and every 13D filing, the 13G filing, the first filing, is basically 2-minute filing. They're automated. Like
Sure.
It just says we own this much, and here's our address. That's literally all it says. If we assume it takes him 2 minutes to overlook every single one of them, and he works 65 hours a week, it takes roughly 114 hours a year, and it would cost $445,000 based on his summary compensation. Basically, BlackRock's paying $445,000 for that guy to look at 13G filings. That's just pretend, right? Like, let's just pretend that's what he's doing.
Yeah, I like it.
If they become 13D filings, which they would be if they talk to any of those companies, there are suddenly a $110 filing fee every time you file. You file every time you talk to the company. Every time you interact with the company, you have to file a 13D. And the forms are much more involved. Let's pretend it takes 20 minutes to do each. So all of a sudden, it takes 23% of his time, or $4.5 million, and nearly $300,000 in filing fees to talk to each company once. It's a 10x cost in paperwork.
Yeah.
It's magical. It's the party of deregulation actually installed significantly more bureaucracy in order to kill a process. It was brilliant.
Well,
it's brilliant.
Well, maybe they can use the same AI that the New York Times is using to help them with this process.
I don't know if AI would be subject to a 13D filing. It's hard to say.
Depends who owns the company.
But here are the big winners, because lest you think someone loses, I looked at the companies with the most 13G filers in terms of the percentage of their holdings. You want to know some of the large cap companies in the United States?
Absolutely.
Philip Morris, for instance, is going to recapture 33% of the vote for management.
Oh, wow. Good for them. Yeah.
The cigarette company, that means what I'm saying is 33% of the vote was basically 13G filers who now have the risk of becoming 13D filers if they talk to Philip Morris or vote against the directors. 1/3 of the total vote. Basically, they can almost guarantee would just be for management.
Okay.
Every time.
Okay. So what you're saying is that they will no longer have a voice at Philip Morris. 33% of the vote will no longer have a voice. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying 33% of the vote, if they were to discuss with management anything or vote against a director, they would likely have to change their filing from a G to a D, pay more, and it's more involved.
But you are suggesting that BlackRock votes against things at Philip Morris, and there's no real truth to that, is there?
No. What I'm saying is now the incentive is not to vote against things at Philip Morris, because if you do, you might have to file something.
Yeah,
right.
But what the irony, of course, is that they're already not voting against things at these.
Oh yeah. It doesn't change much, but now it's more or less a guarantee.
Sure. Of course.
How about this one?
Again, you're just you're consolidating CEO power, management power, board power. That's really what you're doing. You're quieting the voice of all kinds of shareholders.
I'll give you 2 or 3 more. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Eli Lilly gets 32% of its vote back from the 13Gers. Eli Lilly has a negative 24% gender power gap.
Ooh.
Forget closing that, baby. You can't even talk to them about diversity on the board because it would be they would have to change their filing. They'd become an activist. How about Chevron? 24% of their vote they recapture. 75% of Chevron's board is connected to one another. The board average TSR on the board is under 500, 462. So they return less than their peers.
Not a great board, yeah.
And they have a negative 11% gender power gap.
Again, your assumption here is that these 13G filers are actually engaging with Chevron and asking them to deal.
My assumption here is that they can't, they won't now ever have a conversation with them.
Yeah, they've hit pause on that. Yeah.
Here's my favorite one. It's really my favorite 3. There are 3 companies who get more than 50% of their vote back from 13G filers. So if you are at Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, Atmos Energy, or Regency Centers, all of a sudden, most of the majority of your shareholders were 13Gs. They are unlikely to talk to you ever again for risk of looking like an activist.
Yeah.
All 3 of them basically can do whatever they want because a vote against management would be basically an activist stance.
I mean, the cruel irony of this whole thing is that that you would assume that actually a lot of these major 13G filers are sometimes they actually in these meetings they're sharing like good advice, right? Like you kind of want every proxy statement I read talks about the engaged conversations they have with shareholders, and I'm sure they're actually learning a lot through that process, right? That process of oversight, process of a counterbalance to their power. I know we're just focusing on the government's perceived cynical use of that power, but there's a lot more going on in these conversations than just voting against directors, right? There are actual conversations about what the company is up to.
Yeah, like regular governance stuff, like regular conversations, like how are you? What are your capital investments? So now, welcome to a new world.
Yeah, more CEO power.
No conversations can happen. I don't know if I made 13G versus D filing sexy or not.
No, well, you would have if you had kept the music going.
But that was the differentiator.
Yeah.
But that's all we got. That's Hazelnut Rollis. I'm your analyst, Matt Mascardi. We are Free Float. Come back. We actually are going to do a show, tomorrow and Friday?
Tomorrow, Friday, yeah. We'll keep it going.
Like every single day. No, we don't give up
now.
We are filing 13Ds all day long. Until then, goodbye.